Hello and welcome to the Mead Hobby Hall live stream. So, we had a week off last week. Actually, me. It was in fact my birthday last weekend, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, I completely forgot. So, yeah, I kind of ended up having a very last-minute set of celebrations, as it were, across the weekend, and that kind of led to the stream not being available last weekend. Consequently, is that as well, is it also turns out that I've got to download the previous week's one, which has now disappeared to the ether, so we don't have that to upload on YouTube, which is kind of annoying. But there we go. That's my bad. That happens. We live and learn. We're quite new. That is a shame, but nevertheless, we move on. So this week as well, being my sort of birthday week, I've taken quite a relaxed week, I suppose. I haven't done a massive amount in terms of hobby and in channel work. However, there is some brand new exciting things that have been occurring over this weekend as I've been getting back into the swing of things. I've been teaching myself a bit further skills, as it were, for Blender and some 3D modelling, with a view to potentially have some new stuff that we can not only use on our channel for our eventual battle reports that will be arriving hopefully in the next couple of months, but also we could potentially make them and sell them. So you may be able to access some Mead Hall developed tools. Specifically at the moment, I will tell you that I'm working on a set of objective markers for Legion scale, but the skills I'm learning will enable me to make 28mm scale markers as well, and the designs should be suitable for both settings. So I'm quite happy with those, and I've had some very interesting success in just 24 hours of playing around with Blender, and I've been quite happy. I mean, I say 24 hours playing with Blender. I've been playing with Blender for years, but I've only really started getting into the idea of sculpting stuff myself. I've spent the last couple of years digi-bashing, putting things together and slicing other people's files. Yesterday I really sat down and actually started to make my own stuff from scratch, and I have to say the results are quite nice. I'm not going to review anything yet. The idea actually came from a digi-bash I did yesterday for an objective marker for Legions, because one thing I'm going to reveal to you very shortly is that I have not painted many miniatures since just before Christmas. So I had a massive run of painting thousands of points of Legions up until Christmas. Since Christmas I've painted none. Well, beyond what we've done on the stream, and even those haven't been finished, because my massive goal at the moment is to be getting our terrain painted for our table so that we can start actually recording some games. I already have a significant amount of points in terms of Legions to run, so I'm not really worried about adding more, which means that my pile of shame, which went to 0 before Christmas, is now big again. Thankfully, not my own fault. It was all purchases from people at Christmas, so nice expansion, but I don't have to feel too bad about not actually painting them just yet. But trust me, they will get done. But training is taking the priority, and I have a couple of other little projects as well, like the 3D sculpting stuff, as well as some physical sculpting as well, and mould making for another project that might hopefully be ready in the next couple of months. I was actually hoping it was going to be next month it would be ready, but we had a bit of an issue, and that's now delayed that. But the initial results of the tests have all gone very well, so I'm very, very excited about that. I won't reveal more until I know more. So, the topic for today really is going to be, basically, we're going to grab all of the models that we've already been painting on the stream. So, our Basilisks, which I'm going to pop in the little corner there, you can see. We're going to grab those, and we're also going back in time quite a bit, because these have already featured on at least 2 streams now. Going to actually finish these guys off hopefully as well, and actually get them finished so that I can varnish them, put the basing on them, and actually chuck them on the table for a game at some point. So that's one thing I have been doing, although I've not been doing much painting. We have been doing some gaming. We've done quite a bit of gaming, to be fair. We try and get in a game a week at least between myself and Els. And at some point in time I will organise to get the rest of the team over and get them playing more regularly as well. We have spoken about that recently, and that is on the agenda. So we might have some interesting little content going out on the socials, certainly, which would be quite fun. And please do follow us on the socials. Again, the socials have been quite quiet this week because not a lot's been going on, as I've already said. And the stuff that has been going on is not stuff that we want to publicise just yet until they're a bit in a more final condition or state. So that is what it is. So, without further ado, shall we move over to the other screen and get some painting done? Which, I'll be honest, is the first time I've done hay painting for at least a week. Yeah, well, probably a bit longer than that, actually. Can't remember. Yeah, if you've been following us on, say, TikTok or Instagram, you'll see probably around about the last time I did some painting, because I completed a table's worth of Legion scale skyscraper terrain for our city board, which I was very happy with. It's a nice effect. They're quite dark. The finished result is quite dark, which works with the board I've got at the moment. But I have got a future idea, which may mean that my next set of buildings might be a little bit brighter, which I haven't decided yet. We'll see. But that also comes into another little project two other projects I'll be working on. So we'll see. But they certainly work for what I've got, and I'm happy with them, and the results were very good. And on TikTok as well, you can actually find a full breakdown of how I painted those as well. I actually did a little sort of 2.5 minute video, I think, actually taking you through the steps and processes. It does require an airbrush, I'm afraid. I'm not going to make any apologies for the fact that I've invested in an airbrush, because I'm a lazy painter. Simple as that. Okay, so let's finish off this little guy, because he's looking a bit sorry for himself, considering the others have all got their actual colours on, and they've all been washed. This guy's not got any colours or washes, so what we'll do is we'll paint up all the red on him, and all the other details. We'll put a wash on him, put him to one side. While he's drying off, we can hit the rest of the basilisks, and probably finish most of them off, because there's not a whole lot left to do on them. Because they've had all of the dry brushing. I've done the extra wash on them, so that's all done. Doesn't need doing again. So it's literally just picking out details and finishing off the bases on these guys. These guys are very much almost done, which would be nice because I can get them based up as well. These guys might take a bit longer, but again, there's not a whole lot left to do on them once I've got this guy done. It's only an extra wash on certain metallic areas, and some lenses, I think, and that's pretty much it, which would be nice. So once these guys are done, that'd be fantastic. It does remind me, actually, because if anyone has watched or was there during the previous streams, I experimented with doing the black hatch on the top, which I didn't do on my first set of armigers, but I then consequently did all black hatches on all of my knights. So I will have to pull out the other 9 I've got and repaint in some bits as well. And that brass trim on the front, I for some reason didn't pick out in bronze last time, for whatever reason. So I've got to do a little bit of repainting on the other ones, but that's not so bad. That will only be an hour job probably to do the 9 of those, maybe. Right, so now I have actually written down the paints I use for all of my colour schemes now, which is good because I do 3 different armies in this one army. And trying to remember what they all are can be difficult. The only one I haven't written down actually is the Knights one, which I intended to do when I finished all the Knights, but obviously these have been sat here not finished, so I haven't actually gone through and done it, which is a bit silly really, because I should have done it, because there was a chance I might have forgotten how to paint these, but I remember, thankfully. Right, so bit of Mephiston red. Slap that on the armour panels. I've got to do a couple of coats of that to get it right. I need to pick a brush. That is probably a bit too fine. That's way too big. That's the sort of mid-range brush I like. That's the small one that I like to use for the smaller panels. I will move to the bigger one potentially as we move up the model. And thankfully I've got these guys there as references as well, which is always handy. I've got to remember to also block in that bit there in some grey as well. That's going to take a couple of coats of grey normally as the basing details. So off we go. I just want to try and make sure I'm trying to stay in centre of camera for a change, because I know I have a habit of painting over here but my camera's up there. So I definitely need to work on that side of the presentation for certain. And it's funny, I've always said I've not enjoyed painting and I'm a lazy painter, but I do enjoy painting Legions. I don't know why. I mean, it definitely helps that I've made sure, to the best of my ability, or the best of my capacity to be lazy, to make sure I've got the easiest paint jobs possible. And I don't mind so much when the slightly... So for example, my Solo Auxiliary are very, very basic paint schemes. They're really quick, really easy to do. Even my Alpha Legion paint scheme is really quick and dirty and easy to do. There's only a couple of models in that. There was a set of models that I didn't enjoy painting quite so much for the Legions of my Alpha Legion, which was the Stormbirds, because they had a lot of details and complicated bits, and even though I managed to get away with airbrushing 90% of, in fact, to be honest, all of the armour, it was all of the little metallic details that they never seemed to end. And there was no way of sort of getting around that, really. I think even trying to mask it would have been just as laborious as just painting it in, so that wouldn't have helped. So those are the animals I didn't enjoy painting, really. I enjoy painting everything else. Tanks were easy. The infantry I had an interesting experience with, because when I first obviously got into Legions, I was quite keen to get everything painted as quick as possible, and I made the mistake of doing what every lazy painter should never do, which is try and batch paint large numbers of models. Which is okay, to be fair, if you're not only lazy but you really don't care about quality, in which case you can smash out loads of stuff really quick. I'm a lazy painter who likes to do things quickly, but I do like them to look good, and I think I'm quite happy to say that I think I've achieved my goal of being efficient, lazy, but also to a high standard. I wouldn't necessarily say an amazing standard, but I'd say a high standard. I think I can probably claim that. I'd be quite happy. I'm quite proud of my models. I'm not ashamed of them in any way. Don't think I'd win many competitions. I might be able to get a low ranking maybe in a local gaming store if there aren't too many high profile painters there. But I certainly wouldn't be winning anything like a Golden Demon. Not a chance. Not unless they introduce the amateur edition or something, in which case I might stand a chance, I suppose. Unlike my mate Gaz, who is he is a phenomenal painter. The problem is he just doesn't paint very often, which is fair enough. I mean, he runs his own business and stuff like that. So he's a busy man. He doesn't get a lot of time to actually sit and paint, which is a shame because his painting is phenomenal. And if he was more into that side of things, I'd want him to be a pro painter for me. I'd pay him to paint my models any day of the week. But sadly, that's not going to happen. So. How am I doing on camera placement? I'm creeping forward. I've been contemplating building a little gantry rig system on top of this desk so that I can actually put the camera and the lights in a more advantageous position. So I was thinking if I can get the camera, basically this second camera literally above my head, you'll get a much better perspective of what I'm actually doing. And it also means I don't have to worry so much about, you know, where I'm placing my hands and stuff, because you'll just see what I see to a certain degree. So I've also I've just been watching, or I've just watched a YouTube video by Lit Bashing, which, if you're sat here in the Legions channel, hopefully you'll have heard of them. They are probably one of the only real sort of major supporters of Legions Imperialis on YouTube at the moment. Obviously that's something that we want to be involved in. And they've just released a video detailing a community FAQ or errata type document, which the community put together, because Games Workshop have yet to actually release any official changes, updates, FAQs or whatnot for Legions, which is a little surprising because they do seem to be supporting it for model releases, but they don't really seem to be supporting it in terms of the rules very much. And as I've brought up, I think possibly on previous streams and in a recent video, that there are definitely discrepancies in the rules that need to be dealt with. I mean, my biggest one is when I've been playing with my Warlord Titan, and I noticed that the number of void shields on all the Titans matched, like the physical void shields that are represented on the models matched the rules, with the one exception of the Warlord, which is also the only one that's a size class difference to the Titan below it that doesn't increase number of void shields. Whereas every class of Titan, as it goes up in size, gets more void shields. And I think wounds as well, but not necessarily. But definitely the void shields. The void shields increase. 4 for the Warhound. 2 for the Warhound, 4 for the Reaver, 6 for the Warbringer, then suddenly 6 again for the Warlord, and then 12 for the Warmaster. Now, all of those, bar the Warlord, have the exact number of void shields represented on the model. 2 on the Warhound, 4 on the Reaver, 6 on the Warbringer, 12 on the Warmaster. The Warlord has 8. There's 8 on the model. And based on what I've just described there, it makes sense that the Warlord was supposed to have 8 void shields. And from what I understand of like the meta of the game, obviously people who play it, like Lit Bashing, who has more of a community approach to their gaming with it, we tend to play in our little bubble at the moment, certainly. We haven't come across this, but they have, and that is that they mentioned it in one of their earlier videos that the Warmaster just seemed too good compared to the Warlord for such a small points increase. Now, is that just for the fact that it's missing the 2 void shields? Probably not, but I imagine that impacts it. And I'd imagine it's quite a significant impact, I would have thought. 2 void shields isn't a joke. It's the equivalent of an entire Warhound's worth of void shields. So, and it's basically 2 ablative runes that can regenerate, which is, you know, quite significant, I'd say. So it'd be very interesting to see whether that does ever get officially changed. We've been playing it with 8 wounds, 8 void shields, because that appears to be the intention, and it seems to make sense. But obviously, because we play in our little vacuum, we can make those decisions, which is quite advantageous for us. But also, it doesn't stop anyone else from doing it as well. There's no reason why you can't make up your entire own rule system if you really wanted. We certainly won't be going to that level. Well, not anytime soon, anyway. We have talked about potentially, and I say me, writing some rules for a Legions Horde mode, thanks to the inspiration of the Warhammer guys that have done it for 40k, and I believe they are, or were, working on an Age of Sigmar equivalent. I can't see them doing the Legions version. I've never seen them really mention Legions in their videos, so I don't think that's really on their radar. But I've looked at the rule. I've not played the Horde mode for 40k yet, and to be honest, that's bad, because it looks amazing, and I really want to try it. But I just don't have the same enthusiasm for 40k anymore compared to Legions. I don't have a lot of time to sit and play games at the moment, and so if I do sit and play a game, I tend to want to play Legions. So that tends to be the game we play. Myself and Noel have discussed on occasion, because at the moment we're playing once a week. We have thought about maybe we'll try twice a week, and we'll do a game of 40k as well as a game of Legions each week to keep up with the game, which I think would be a good idea. And I'm definitely keen to try out this idea of and I've not been a proponent of it. I've always liked the idea of more models on the table, but now I have that fix, so to speak, very much catered for in Legions. I'm starting to come around to the idea of the 1,000-point games of 40k. I've heard a lot of people saying it works better, it flows better. It's just generally better. And I've seen a lot of the arguments for and against, and I've got to be honest, it's becoming more appealing. Part of that is due to my just unwillingness to paint large armies for 40k anymore. Not when I can paint colossal armies for Legions in the same time it would take me to paint probably 1,000 points worth of 40k. But you know, I do find that it might just be a better option, so I am seriously considering looking at it, because it might mean that it will give me some motivation to actually finish off painting some of my armies that I kind of sat there doing not a lot. Looking a bit sorry for themselves on the shelves. I mean, some armies I've got are well over 1,000. One or two of them are actually painted. I mean, of the ones that are well over 1,000, I think only one's actually painted. I have a couple. I think I have one or two 2,000-point armies painted, and then I have one army that is theoretically about 4,000 points, possibly more, that is half painted. And then I have probably about 3 armies that have either got virtually no paint on them or have only got 1 or 2 units painted. Which just shows how poor I am at actually painting my models. Which is pretty bad. Especially as I tend to go to a lot of effort converting them all up as well. I mean, I've got I've got a Leagues of Votan army, which I converted up to be the Disciples of Hashut, a 40k version of the Chaos Dwarves from Fantasy. Because I prefer the Chaos Dwarves, to be honest. I love dwarves, but in Warhammer's universe, the Chaos Dwarves are just much cooler. And they have magic. And I like magic. So I decided to make a rendition of them. It also probably was heavily inspired by the fact that the Chaos Dwarves were just released for Total War Warhammer 3 at the time. So I was like, ooh, I'm going to give them a go. Ironically, not my favourite faction, but definitely one of my favourite factions. I've become a massive, massive fan of Cathay. I absolutely love playing Cathay. And I also really do enjoy playing the Chaos as well. Just the Warriors of Chaos. I really enjoy playing those. Their mechanics in that game are great fun. And I currently have a campaign where I'm actually running as Be'lakor, trying to unite Chaos under one banner, and then I'm going to launch an end times of my own on the on all the factions, which is quite fun. I mean, I have a heavily modded version of Total War. One of the mods is my own, which basically is used to kind of increase the battle timers, because I remember the old days of medieval Total War when, you know, a battle was something epic, and, you know, you would spend time planning out your moves, and your infantry would engage, and they'd sit there for a few minutes, gives you a little bit of time to contemplate what's going on and zoom in and have a look at the action, which I don't tend to find you really can do in the vanilla. But also, I have quite a powerful rig, so it, you know, increases all the unit sizes by 4. So I got big armies that look really cool. So that's good fun. It just feels more epic. So yeah, I've got that campaign on the go, and I've bound Norska under Be'lakor, and I've also bound a few other the demon factions. Had to take out Azazel because Azazel declared war on me, and that was just insulting. So, you know, he had to go. I say go. I mean, I confederated him in the end. So he's now bound to Be'lakor as well. And yeah, I've literally just sent off an expedition of several armies into the Darklands to go and bind bind the Chaos Dwarves under my banner as well, because I feel like that would be a sensible option. And the other thing, which is possibly a little bit sneaky, but Chaos doesn't tend to have a lot of ranged units. But if I can force the Chaos Dwarves into vassalization, so that I can get their tribute and basically boss them around the battle, the campaign map, it will also allow me to build those lovely little outposts in their settlements, which means I can start recruiting Chaos Dwarf units. Which means that little roster deficiency of no ranged becomes a problem no more, as I can just recruit some Chaos Dwarf gunners with their very powerful missile units. You combine that with the Warriors of Chaos and the Demons, and suddenly you've got a very, very scarily well-rounded army. So if I can dominate the Darklands, get the Chaos Dwarves on side, then the goal would be to sort of march up to, I think my next goal, I think after that, would be take the Southern Chaos Wastes, bring them all in, then take the Northern Chaos Wastes, and then make my decision where to go from there. Who to conquer and destroy first? Not quite sure yet. I've got an idea in my mind that my first target will probably be Ulthuan, take out the High Elves. They're not actually the strongest faction in the game for a change at the moment. In my state of play, the Empire actually and Kislev are the Empire and Cathay are actually the most powerful factions in the world state at the moment, which is interesting. So, just to challenge myself, I might leave them until last. I say challenge myself, actually. That's probably going to make it life easier, because I'm going to conquer the rest of the world first, making them very weak. So, we'll see. But yeah, I'm thinking of taking the island of Ulthuan first. Get rid of those pesky elves. Probably gift those lands all to Norska. They can hold on to that. And then maybe make my decision there. Maybe sweep across Nagaroth into Lustria and take them out. I'm also trying to bind the Skaven as well. Get them on side. Because they feel like suitable allies. Yeah, and then we'll go from there. So yeah, I am definitely playing the bad guy for a change. Oh well, I say for a change. I quite often play the bad guy. I do tend to play, obviously, my Alpha Legion and stuff like that, so I can kind of play both, but I do end up tending to be the bad guy. Although in Legions, it's looking like I'm not going to be the bad guy for a change. I'm definitely not going to be the bad guy. Because we're going to have Word Bearers and Night Lords to contend with. And although I do have my Alpha Legion force, my primary army is House Dracarin, who are technically loyalist, but they're more independent. They're a little bit of a fringe faction. I suppose you could almost consider them a vassal state of the Imperium rather than necessarily a part of it. So yeah, I'm definitely still going to play the sort of not quite the villain, not quite the hero, somewhere in between. Because that's where I like to play. It gives me more freedom to engage in whatever fights I want. And then the other faction is the Eldar, or the Eldari, which again is a little bit of an interesting one because they're not really the good guys, but I suppose when your oppositions are the Night Lords and the Word Bearers, then they kind of are the good guys of the story. So there could be a few occasions where I'm allying with the Xenos. I did think it would be quite cool to try and replicate Cathay in 40k as well. I like bringing the fantasy factions into 40k. Don't know why. I just quite enjoy the idea. I did think I could, if I hadn't already painted so many of these things, it would have been quite an interesting one to like do Terracotta Knights. Which I'd imagine would have looked quite cool. But alas, we haven't done that, and I am not repainting them all. It's just not happening. I put far too much effort into painting this all up. But I can sort of stylize it in the way I like. The thing is, if I was to play Old World, I would be waiting for a Cathay faction to be released. Because I think they will eventually. Total War game has done them so many favours. I would struggle to see them not trying to bank in on that again by releasing a model range. And I probably would play. I would definitely have to consider getting some Cathay. And ironically, my Legions army does kind of fit the Cathay theme with the big knights and stuff acting as the sort of constructs and stuff, and my large auxiliary forces of infantry, the peasant army, if you like. It does all fit. They're just not painted like it, which is neither here nor there, really. So it kind of makes sense that Cathay would be the faction I'd want to play. Question is, though, if I did, would I actually play Cathay, or would I theme them differently? So that is the one thing about the fantasy, I have to say, is it's I suppose you could, in theory, homebrew your own faction, but it's a lot harder because the whole world is already mapped, so to speak, and we know where everyone is and what exists in the world. And if you want to build a superpower capable of taking on the rest of the fantasy world, like, it would be quite difficult to justify. Whereas in 40k, I can make my own factions, no problem, because we're talking about a galaxy that is very much left open to allow you to expand into it. So, if I were to play fantasy, I probably would just paint up a Cathay army. Whereas at least in 40k I can have some freedom. And what I like about what I do is I've got my one sort of in-universe faction that's my favourite, that I collect some stuff for, and I still have an army for, which is my Alpha Legion. But then I have my own faction that works alongside them, so I still get that creative freedom. I think that's quite a nice way of doing it, so you can still have your foot in the door of lore accurate, as well as having the freedom to do whatever the hell you like. And I quite like that idea. It's worked well for me. It has led me to massively focusing on my own stuff, my own armies and stuff, but I still have a sizable Alpha Legion representation, which will increase over time. In fact, I have got some extra models for it, which I will need to actually make up at some point soon. Right, so reds and blacks are all done. It's the main blocky colours in. Nice and quick, really. That didn't take long at all, probably about half hour, if that. And now we've got to whack on the bronzing. Once the bronze is all done, wash time. Swap my paint pot over. Please ignore the rather dirty looking cap there. I have two paint pots, one for metallics, one for non-metallics. As Duncan Rhodes and Peach used to say on Warhammer TV or on the Warhammer YouTube, swap your paint pot when you change when you from metallic when you're not using metallics, or if you're going to change from them. I tend to find it's easier just to have two small pots, one for metallics and one for not. That way I don't have to get up and change my pots. Again, being the lazy painter to a T. Speaking about being a lazy painter now, I've got to do all this line work. Ugh. Not my favourite part. Not on these guys anyway, because they're a lot fiddlier. These are probably my least favourite models to paint of my entire Legions army. But the reason why I don't mind doing them quite so much is they're worth so many points.
Three of these little guys. 180 points. Boom. Done. So they feel much more worth it. That's probably why I like the idea of this these 1,000-point games now of 40k. It just puts it into perspective that I get a little bit more value out of the models I'm painting because it's a bigger percentage of an army. I mean, yes, it's the same theoretical points or literal points, but it's also going to be effectively 50% more value because it's going to be it's going into half the army size. So where a 100-point model used to only be 5% of your points, it's now 10% of your points. And it suddenly becomes a little bit more interesting. You paint your 100 points of models and you've done a tenth of your army. Now, of course, in 40k, 100 points is probably only 5. It's only 5 Space Marine models, but those are twice the size of these, half the points, and larger, more complicated models. That's what I was trying to say. Whereas I've only got to paint 3 small little guys with less detail. And less detail doesn't mean worse, it just means easier to paint. And they still look pretty damn good if you ask me. These ones are especially quite good because these are 3D printed. So I'm quite impressed that they're quite so good. These are phenomenal files. I'm glad I found them because otherwise I would have had no armigers because I'm not paying Games Workshop for resin. Sorry, Games Workshop. I love your plastic kits, but your resin, you ain't getting my money. Not when my 3D printed resins are better. And they are better. I mean, I've got some fine cast resin. Never again. It's just so inferior to what you can achieve with a 3D printer. And for an absolute tiny fraction of the cost. The other benefit of Legions as well is 3D printing in resin terrain is a lot more viable than it is for 28mm 40k. Not that it's not viable in 20mm 40k, definitely is viable. But a lot less so, I would say. Oh, sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Let's see if I can. Maybe not. I'm hovering over the mute button so you don't hear it. I think we might be okay. I'm going to leave the mouse cursor just over it, just in case I had to quickly mute you. Well, mute me. But I don't want to attack you if you're wearing headphones with a massive sneeze. That would be most unpleasant for all involved. Well, it'd probably be quite satisfying for me. Something satisfying about a good sneeze. Especially when it's stuck up there and you know it wants to come out. And it does, but it's not. Getting through this banding nice and quick. That's what we like. It's quite nice, I suppose, because I also haven't done any more of these knights for a little while, so it's quite nice to do something different again. I think that's something I've learned from John as well, is having the palette cleanser. Although his version of palette cleanser is to do something completely off base, not necessarily even in the same system, doesn't even, yeah, could be anything and everything for John. At least with the way I've gotten this army set up, is my palette cleanser is still building towards the same army, because I've got different paint schemes. And I definitely think that's definitely a tactic that could be employed if you are someone who wants to build like a full army, is try and find ways of adding alternate colour schemes into your armies so that you have a bit of a palette cleanser. Or just add another faction in, an allied faction, just so that you've got something a little bit different to work on. And it becomes less laborious to actually sit and paint, because you'll paint something different every now and then. Or every other model or unit you sit down to paint should be something different. I mean, I did go through and I painted up, I mean, not quite 4,000 points, because, you know, there's still a couple of models sat here, but almost 4,000 points of knights in a month. That was a slog. It was fun. I have to admit it was fun, but it was a slog towards the end. As you can probably tell, I mean, I've not been too upset that these have been sat there not being finished yet, because they took a lot of my time. But having taken a step back and doing a load of terrain now, coming back and doing this little guy has been quite nice. I think that's a lesson learned there. Taking a break and doing some other stuff is quite fun. So I may employ that strategy as I start painting up the rest of my army. So I've got one more unit of knights to finish off after this. I know, more knights. And there are definitely more knights on the agenda in the future as well. I already know I'm going to picking up a bunch more Cerastus and Crestores boxes at some point. I've got 4 Titans to paint still. Well, four Games Workshop Titans to paint, and 1 to convert and paint, which is my Imperator that I'm going to make. But I'm saving that project for either for when I just feel like doing it, or once all my other models are painted up, I will treat myself to the conversion and painting of an Imperator. Which I will need to write some rules for. Okay, almost done with the band end, just got to do the shoulders, and then there's a couple of bronzy bits I like to pick out on the chassis. Just to break up the metalwork. That's literally the only reason. I just pick out random bits that I think look like they would be interesting if they were painted differently. They are uniform across the model, but the first time I do the models, I just look at the bits and think, oh, do that in a different colour. That will just make the rest of it look a little bit more interesting. Won't look boring to look at. And I don't even bother changing my base paints either. I just use the same one and I use different washers, which has a very similar effect to using a different base paint. And to be honest, I actually think is probably easier than switching your base paints out, because if you slip with a base paint, you're probably going to have to repaint it or touch it up. Except with a wash, and either it just adds to the effect because it's gone over a little bit, or alternatively, you can just wipe it away really easily. I mean, you can wipe away base paints, I do it all the time, but not always, and it can be hard to do sometimes if you don't get there quick enough. With a wash though, you have a lot more breathing room to work with, and potentially that is a massive advantage to the way I do it. It's certainly become a favourite method of mine now, just to use different washes, certainly on metallics. Other colours I tend to use contrast. I say that though, to be fair, I mean I don't use, to be honest, my Legions armies, I don't really use any contrast apart from the Alpha Legion. That's the only army of the 4 that actually use contrast as the base colour. I actually use predominantly base paints, which I've only just thought of. That's unusual for me. It's very unusual for me. I tend to swear by contrasts. But I suppose it comes down to the fact that with these guys, washes just work a bit better, because I'm not looking to paint every detail. So I just paint the details I want and then whack a wash on it. And it gives the illusion of a fully painted art piece, rather than my very quick lazy paint job. The only problem with these resin kits, I suppose, is that they are brilliant and they're very faithful to the Forge World kits in aesthetic. But because of that, you do have these really, really thin struts connecting them all together. And as we know, resin is quite brittle. But we do use quite a nice resin, which is more durable than most we've used. I think it's the same one that I think it's Luke from Geek Gaming Scenics recommended many years ago. But I don't think I was printing at the time, and it wasn't actually through him that we discovered it. It was John who discovered it, passed it on to me as an idea. I tried it, thought it was great, and then it just so happened I was watching an old Geek Gaming Scenics video, and it was the exact resin that he was recommending people use. That was a nice little bit of coincidence, really, because I've always followed Geek Gaming stuff. I was a little bit gutted when they stopped doing the YouTube, because I always enjoyed their content. But they were a good inspiration for a lot of things. a lot of my older handmade terrain projects and whatnot. But I had since, or have since, found a couple of very good crafters, YouTube crafters. Now I do tend to do a lot of things with 3D printing these days. I don't tend to handcraft a lot anymore. But I do love watching the process. And there are certain things that you just would rather craft than 3D print, because it would be a colossal undertaking and stupidly expensive to do it by printing, such as entire game boards. So content like that, Lockyer, Zorp, it's got to be, and no offense to anybody else, but he is without a doubt the best crafter I have ever seen. Certainly for like foam crafting and stuff like that. I mean, his stuff is just phenomenal. And if Mead Wargaming ever gets a chance to work with Zorp in the future, we'll be on that immediately. Or I certainly will be. I'd love to collaborate with him on something one day, or even get him to make us a board one day. That would be amazing. But there's a lot of it's certainly new to me. I'm not sure if it's a new channel or not. I haven't really looked into it that much, but there's a channel for the roll, which are very good. Got some really nice little tips and tricks for hobbying that I've seen. They've been quite cool. I would like those. Tabletop Time, they do some great stuff. The conversion works they do are next level. They are really, really cool. Dave's Alpha Legion, inspiring. I'd love to have the I'd love to do a lot of that. I love doing the conversion work. I don't, as I say, it's the painting it that puts me off. It's just a shame, because I'd love to replicate some of the stuff he does, or at least take some inspiration from, because they are great. But you never know, might do it in the future. So with all my terrain works and projects and stuff, I will probably be continuing to paint up my army on the hobby halls at the moment. The original plan was to move over and start painting up some of my 40k backlog on hobby halls, but I'm not going to get a lot of time, I don't think, with all my other projects now, to actually paint a lot of the my Legions kits, and I've got quite a lot to get through, so there is a good chance that hobby hall is going to be my excuse to paint up a lot of those kits I got at Christmas. Which, considering I haven't even started painting any of those kits yet, could mean we've got hobby hall content settled for a little while yet. We'll see. If I get an opportunity to paint some of the stuff myself in my own time, I'm going to, because I want to get that stuff on the table. But we shall see. It certainly might get to a point where I'm painting some things on the channel and something off. Like, for example, I can't see myself doing the Titans on the stream, only because I do a lot of airbrushing on the Titans, and they probably won't be that interesting to watch paint, because it'll be a lot of loud noises from my airbrush. But we'll see. I may change my mind on that. Depends. Right, there we go. This guy is... Oh, no, he's not done. I've missed the little nodules in the inside. I know I've done that on a couple of them. To be honest, I don't even care that much. because you're never really going to see them. But I spotted it, so I'm going to do it. There we go. I suppose I could take this opportunity to quickly go over and check. So there we go. So he's ready for Varna. Well, no, he's ready for washing. So he's got his nodules done. That's fine. I love these little armigers. I don't know why. They're just very satisfying. I definitely will have to do a night army for 40k. Like I said though, I'm only going to be doing 1,000 points though, so I say a night army, I might just buy a knight. Maybe a few war dogs, warhounds, armigers, whatever you want to call them. Just run around the table. Yeah, see this one that I didn't do. Okay, let's fix that mistake. And because I know I'm going to be washing that model anyway, I can just pop in there. Remind me to quickly apply a little bit of wash. Yeah, so it was only the one I missed on. It's not bad, to be fair. Doesn't annoy me when I miss things like that though. It drives me mad. Okay. So that's the knights done. Well, done for a minute. Need to let the metallics dry for a second. I'm going to pop these guys off screen out of the way for a minute. Try not to handle the models too much because I have found that the paint does peel away sometimes from the oil from your fingers. But I mean, these are all varnished up and heavily varnished. I put 3 varnish coats on them. They are not rubbing off anytime soon. So got this little guy as my reference piece. See what I need to do on the basilisks. Not a whole lot really. Got all their metallics. I need to do the lens works and some Achillean stripes on some bits and pieces. Pick out some cables here and there, potentially. But other than that, it's pretty much done. Yeah. Oh, keep in there. And there's a couple that need their bases finishing up as well. That's a good point actually. That one there needs a bit of red on that one. Let's finish that one off because the rest of them, their bases are pretty much done apart from one that needs a bit of contrast on it. The only reason I'm going to do this one now though is because, I mean that has already been washed actually. Okay, never mind. I can pop that over the wash, it's fine. Okay, cool. So let's pick up those cables. No. Do I pick out contrast or just go straight with the red? Let's just go straight with the red. I've got a bit of Mephiston left on my palette. I think I did do those with the contrast red. They are going to look very different if I don't. Yeah, okay. Contrast red it is. I'm snooking myself there, look. Having to keep everything continuous. That's alright, because I also know some of the lenses are red as well, so I can base coat the lenses and the pipeworks at the same time. Right, here we go. So there's definitely 2 cables on here. There's one here, which is minuscule, and there's also got loads of like grabbers on it, keeping it in place, which means it'll be an absolute nightmare to try and pick out. So I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to assume that that is, in my head canon, that is going to be a pipe rather than a cable. This one though, this one's definitely more cable-like, so we'll pick him out. We're only really doing this because it'll just add a little bit of colour to an otherwise very monotone model. I don't know, hopefully might be able to, there we go, might be able to see that little white cable in there. You'll see it better when it's in red, but it'll just help break up the colour of the model just enough. And that's all I've done with these guys. Literally just a bit of cable work and a stripe, and that's all that they need to make them look a bit more interesting. And there's no other capes or there's no other cables on that one, so it's literally just going to be that single little red cable on the top. The lenses I'm going to do with a super bright Stormhost silver before they get some greens and reds over them. I think John tried to convince me not to paint these cables in on the stream last time, but I feel like they need them. I feel like it's required just to, as I say, give it a little bit of colour. And I don't want them to have a lot of colour, because the idea was these were supposed to be really dingy, industrial. These are very much the peasants to the knights, so they're not supposed to be in any way ostentatious. The Achillean stripe serves a dual purpose. One, it's an accent colour for the army, just to again break the colours up a little bit, but also serves the purpose of hinting that the Aethon Auxiliate might be a little bit more loyal to the Alpha Legion than Dracaran might like to think. Or that maybe House Dracaran's a little bit more loyal to the Alpha Legion than anyone believes. They definitely work together on occasion. Equally, they have fought. But, you know, as with anything with Alpha Legion, that's not unusual for them to seemingly fight their allies. Oh, shoot. Just don't want to do that. That's why I keep those over there, usually. Well, that just proved the stress test on that. The Armiger's legs held up to a little knock like that, so that's good to know. Wasn't really intentional, but there we are. I really want to get at least these guys done today. Ideally, we'll get the knights finished as well. There's not a lot to do on them either, because then I can at least actually finish them. Because I know as soon as we're done on the stream, I'm going to want to be going straight back on Blender and carrying on with my project on there, because I was getting to a good point where I might have something printable soon. And I will, if I can get these done, I will put some time in to get some varnishing done and get the bases on them so they can go on socials.
we've also got to do their order tokens and stuff as well, which I'll do at some point this week. I like to do their order tokens as I paint the units now, rather than doing what I had to do, which was batch paint a load of them in one go, because I had already painted up many units. Right, where's the super bright silver? There she is, Stormhost. Stormhost separates like mad. It's one of the worst paints for separating, I've noticed. So apologies, but this needs a really good shake up. I've got agitators in there as well, hopefully. We'll get it nice and mixed up. Pop that on some of those lenses. Then what we'll do is we'll quickly whip back over to the Knights and put the first wash on those guys. Then while they're going off, what we'll do is we'll come back and probably paint in all of the details on these guys. Then we'll do the bases, finish off the bases on both sets. And then hopefully by the time we've done that, we can start working through the rest of the Knights, putting the last washes on. And then, in theory, we'll actually be finished. We'll have actually finished 2 projects today. Or as finished as we're going to be on stream. I'm not going to go through the process of doing all the basing and the varnishing, because the varnishing is all done with an airbrush, and the basing's not really that interesting to watch, to be honest. It's slapping PVA on and dunking in a mix. And the mix I use as well, if anyone is interested, is the Geek Gaming Scenics Base Ready Urban, Dark Urban or something like that. That's the one I use, and it is an absolutely incredible base ready, because it also still works at Legion scale, which is very nice. Right, so we've got a few little lenses on this guy, which is good, because we want those pops of colour, and we've got a couple there. One little one here, and we've got one right at the front. There's 4 lenses. Probably I do tend to have an idea. So I do tend to do mostly green with like a red sort of spotter sight kind of thing. So we'll probably do these ones green and do those 2 red probably. This will be the my artillery finally finished for my auxiliary. When I say finished, I mean my first box of artillery done. But let's be honest, we all know I'm gonna get more. I mean, I want to be able to run the artillery formation. Which means that I could run 24 artillery pieces. I'm thinking two lots of basilisks and a set of Medusas. You know, basilisks are much more general purpose. You want more of those, and a couple of Medusas in there just for variety. I have no idea whether like an artillery formation's even. I feel like an artillery formation, it always
no matter what you do, it's either just going to be overpowered or weak. I found like the one unit of these guys is actually quite cool. They're not massively damaging, but they do put some pressure on and gives you some flexibility and options. Obviously, if you roll well, it can be quite devastating, as with most things in Legions, but that's the luck of the draw when it comes to dice games. Way too much of this silver on my palette. Sadly, that's what we call a wastage. These guys got their silver eyes. They have. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Maybe not. I've got two lenses on them as well. But I don't really want to do that now, because then I'll forget to do it on them, because they're going to get hit with the extra. So we'll hang fire on doing them. Just try and remember I've got to do some lenses on some Armigers. Right, so I need to do a little wash of Nuln Oil. Running a bit low there, but I think I've got 2 spare pots up there, so we're fine. Grab me wash brush. And we're going to wash these two. And we'll go around and fix up some bases, finish off the basilisks, and that will actually be the basilisks done then. They will be done. So we will have finished at least one of the units today, which is great. Hopefully we'll also finish these knights. A bit of moisture on that brush. Right, we'll just quickly pop that little wash on there. The guy that got missed. There we go, that's it. And then this guy needs a good old washing all over. I'm literally just gonna slap this on everywhere. Which I think for my next little painting project, if I've got a little bit of spare time, I'm gonna go over the other Armigers and fix them up to be more in line with these guys. So with the bronze detailing that I missed and the black panel. And I'll also, at the same time while I'm doing them, I'll work on the order tokens for these guys. That'll be my next little job. I'll try and get that done before the next hobby haul, otherwise you'll be watching me potentially doing more work on some more Armigers, but you will also get to see how my objective tokens are done, potentially. I'll certainly see part of it. I mean, again, a lot of it's done with an hairbrush. But there is definitely some bits of them that have to be done by hand. So potentially you'll be seeing that. But I'll try and get it done before then so that we can actually paint up an entirely new unit. Like I said, we probably won't be doing the Titans though, so it'll be either some more auxiliaries or there's some cables on these guys to do as well, actually, I forgot that. As I'm just going over this, so yeah, there's a little bit more to do with these guys. I've got to base all those cables in white, and then I use a blue on them, I think. There we go, washes on. Oh, hang on, I've got to do the little bit of wash on his base actually. A little basing piece. Probably a little bit excessive to have basing accessories at Legion scale, but I like it. Just makes the base look a little bit more interesting. And for the sake of a tiny bit of paint and a quick wash, it's not really that much effort. Just to spice up a bit. Sometimes it does make the application of the basing PVA a little bit more task intensive, but generally not significantly enough to be concerned about. The only time it ever has annoyed me, so to speak, is when I've been doing it on the infantry models. That could be a little bit problematic. I have considered potentially doing basing them up, so I'll actually paint the base with the PVA, pop it down, quickly put a little bit of super glue on the bases of the infantry, pressing them in and on top of the PVA, and then just straight away dunking it all in the basing material, which might work, might be a little bit more easier. I might try it with one, see how it goes. So I can't see any reason why that wouldn't work. So we'll see. Just might be a case of not being a little bit slower on the application of the PVA, just so that I'm not rushing too much. When it comes to the knights and stuff, I mean, just paint around the feet, it's not too bad, and the vehicles are the same, and the tie-ins, fine. It's only really the infantry that makes it a little bit more difficult, generally. Right then, so we do need a little bit of contrast blood angels, because we're going to pop some of that on those cables and some of those lenses. Then we'll grab, I think I'm using Striking Scorpion Green for the green. And then we just got to do some stripes. And then potentially finishing off the bases on these guys before we get on to the finishing the knights off. Oh yes, and this guy needs some red on that as well. Let's grab the other brush quickly. I always do these I-beams, girder type things as red. Don't know why. They just, in my head, they're supposed to be red, so they're red. I'm sure that's probably a reference from my childhood somewhere. Okay, you can be quite rough with this because, one, there's a contrast so it flows, and two, it's a metallic beam of scrap metal basically in the ground. If it's showing a bit of red silver through, oh no dear, it's damaged. There you go, done. One thing I love about contrast though, that's what it looks like over a metallic, but when I put it over this Corax white, it's completely different. I'm going to switch brushes though because that's too broad for this very fine application. And then I'm going to pop it on these little lenses here. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but we'll try. I don't know how clear it's going to show up on camera, but that's over a dark metallic, and over Corax white, and then tiny little lenses there, Stormhost silver. Now, I don't think it's going to show up very well there, but if you go to the social media, they will be clearly visible there. But I can see from looking at this in person, that contrast over those three different bases has made three different reds. It's very clever. It's very cool. I love it. Be interested to know how long these basilisks actually took to paint, because we went from a base coat and a wash to where we started today in one session of the hobby hall, which was about 3 hours. And that was with a lot of talking and distractions with John, so it wasn't exactly the most concentrated hobby session. We got them almost painted up in that single session. I mean, I've not even been concentrating on doing these today, and I've pretty much been finished them off. I reckon if I was really concentrating, I would get a full box of these done in 3 hours. Or, to be more conservative, let's say I'd get these done in an evening. And I also know that to be true because I did do 4 Leman Russes and 2 Malcadors in an evening. No, I didn't. No, I did 8. I did 8 Leman Russes and 4 Malcadors in one evening after work. From a primed start. But I wouldn't call that cheating. That is effectively an evening. I mean, I could have done it in the evening. I still have plenty of time when I finished. I don't really count doing the basing and the varnishing. They're not really laborious steps in the process, so the varnishing always takes a bit longer because obviously you've got to wait between coats. Not so bad. You could easily get a load of Legions tanks done in a day. Like, you could do loads in a day. If you had them all already built, at least. If you planned ahead and primed everything, and potentially even got your first base spray done, which is what I tend to do, then yeah, you could knock out, certainly depends on your colour scheme, but I could definitely knock out shed loads of these vehicles in a day. And I've got quite a few still to do. I've got 4 Bane Blades to do. And I've still got to build actually my Dracosians. And we'll have to do it at some point this week because they're going to feature in one of our games soon. or need to be featured as part of our game soon. One of my custom missions, they're going to be useful as a effectively as an objective marker. So I'm going to have to at least build them. Don't know if I'll paint them. Okay, not that they take long to paint, but they'll probably be my next thing to make. I've got to paint up some. I've got to build some tanks for elves anyway for our next game. She wants to try a Space Marine armoured company. So I might try and do like a little mirror match where I overrun a bunch of my auxiliary tanks to go up against the Astartes in a bit of an even matchup. Or I might go for a little bit more asymmetrical and run some knights with some auxiliary infantry. We'll see. I might go for the mirror match because she's still learning, and it might be a little bit fairer maybe while she's still learning. I personally think knights are very good if you use them right. There are some odd things about them. Like, I really don't understand. Ion shields just don't seem to work the way they're supposed to. I mean, the Armigers have a 3-up save and a 5-up ion. So in order to hit the ion shield, you need to be taking a -2. But then, to put you on a 5-up save. But then if you took it on the ion save, it becomes a 6-up. So you're better off just taking your armour. It's an odd one. I'm not really sure what the intention was behind that. I mean, I suppose no. I was going to say it's kind of like an invuln, but it's not, because it is modified, and the fact that it's modified is what makes the issue. But I can't say the knights have underperformed in my games, so I'm not overly concerned about it, really. Oh, this green has got a bit of a blockage in it. Oh. I think I might need to clean that off. Oh shit. No. Damn it. That is a lot of green on my palette. I mean, it's probably not as bad as I'm making it sound, but that really breaks my heart because I hardly use it. I literally only use it for tiny little bits like this. So to see so much of it's going to be wasted. Oh, that annoys me so much. Like, that is it. That's all I'm using it for. And the eyes on them, and that's it. Oh, I mean, to be fair, I do use it a lot on my Necrons, but I don't really paint my Necrons at the moment, so that's a somewhat moot point. Which means I'm going to be that much closer to having to buy another pot for something I hardly use. Annoys me when that happens. This guy's got a basin bit that he's doing, so we'll keep him to one side. Oh, actually, it doesn't really matter because I've still got to do the Achillean stripes. Now, you might not be able to tell, but I'm going to show you this now. Right? All I've done is add a red cable and a couple of lenses, and honestly, it suddenly has become... It now looks interesting to look at. It's just that tiny bit of detail is all it takes to make a model stand out. You really don't need to go crazy and paint every tiny little detail if you don't want to. If you want to, great, but you really don't have to. You can really get away with being really minimalist. You know, I put much more effort into my Titans than I do anything else. I put slightly more effort into the Knights. I put very little effort into the Auxilia because they really don't need it. And I don't even put a lot of effort into the Alpha Legion because they really don't need it either. Honestly, you cannot believe how much of a difference it makes until you see it. Like, even just going adding this green on. Like, the red was a start. But as soon as you put that third colour on, oh my god, does it suddenly come to life. I could probably leave it there and not put the stripes on, and they would look like completed miniatures. And all it is bronze. Like, the two main colours on there is a bronze and the black on the treads. And that is almost it. I mean, there's a bit of, like, proper silver in there, like on the barrels and a couple of bits and pieces. A red in two slight different tones, and a green. And they're tiny. That is it. That is all that's on it, and it suddenly comes to life. It's quite amazing. Right, so what I want is I need some Agros dunes to finish off those bases there, so we'll quickly do these. And then we're going to put the stripes on, and then these basilisks are done. And by the looks of it, our wash is almost done. It's almost dry, which is also very good news because it means that hopefully we can press on and also get those knights finished up potentially as well. I've got an hour, well, just over an hour. I reckon we can do it. By we, I mean me. Because no offence, but no one's here helping me. This is all me. I want to try and avoid the issue we just had, so I'm going to try and scrape off some of this paint with an old scalpel blade, so I can get it down that tube a bit easier. Hopefully I can dislodge any blockage a bit easier. I'm thinking that was the issue. Quite a build up here. I was probably struggling to get down into it. This one little paper clip does a lot of work. Yep, there we go, look, straight down. Yeah. I might need a bit more than that actually, because I've got a few of these little sandbags to paint. Use me thicker brush again. Tankier brush, pun intended. Big old glob of that on. This is a great colour, but you do need to slap this on. Some of the contrasts you can get away with lighter applications. Some of them you just have to tank it on. Just like that. Like that red I hardly put any on. But this Agros dunes though, you just need to load your brush up and go to town. This is a one thick coat jobby. There's a little bit of finesse into it because you don't want it to pull in the wrong place or too much, but it just means manipulating it a little bit. There we go. We've got a couple of sandbags to finish over here, so we'll grab these guys out and do their sandbags. Why not? We've got the paint out, so let's do it. running a bit low on that paint now. Not quite thick enough. There we go. Crap. I just want a sliver out of here. I don't want much. I don't want to waste the paint if we can help it. Doing this with conventional paints would be a lot harder. These sort of tan and yellows are a lot harder to paint. That's why contrast work really well for these. If I wanted to go for a metallic red on my lights, I could have used the metal contrast, but because I had base coated it in red and I wanted a nice matte finish on it, I went the other way. I actually used normal paints. Okay, so that's them done. There is a little bit of red on this guy's base to do, and I've got a bit of red left on the palettes. Let's quickly do that while we're here. Go. That's the base is officially done. That one's already got the red on it. So yeah, that's all the bases done. So all the bases and everything's done now, which is good. So, stripey time. I'll probably use this thicker brush. Grab my Achillean green. I think is no, that's Griff Charger. There we go. That should be it. The not Alpha Legion colour. I have used quite a lot of this. Thankfully, I think I have a spare pot. I do tend, when I know I use the paint a lot, I will buy two. If I start to get low, I prepare and replace it beforehand. Right, let's do this. Let's finish these basilisks off. Shouldn't need too much of this. I'm only doing a few lines. Bring these together, bring them forward. So we've got room to bring them back. Right, let's pop. Where are we going to put some stripage? We might do one on the side there. And again, there's no method to this. This is very much just picking out shapes and positions on the tanks at a whim, really. There's no real thought process behind it. I just decide where I want to put it. Sometimes I put it on one section, sometimes I put it on two. I'll just leave it on the one on that one. This one. I might put a long stripe. You know what? I'm gonna do a corner piece on this one, or a triangular piece. paint in the side of it there, look. Probably should come down there, it's looking a bit weird. That looks a bit more natural. There you go. Do something on the front of this one maybe, or at least front visible, maybe a stripe down the top. I'll pick an area where it's not going to intersect too much with anything I don't want it to cover. Imagine they just grabbed a spray can and just sprayed this on. It doesn't even need to be all that neat, to be honest. Simply needs to sell the idea. Let's go for a big old stripe that crosses the armour panel. Trying to do basic ones on the first sort of few, and then as I get towards the end I might do something a little bit more interesting. Let's do a back triangle here. A little bit more subtle, that one. I think we need somewhere on the back of one of these. I was just going to paint his access hatch with a stripe. There we go. And these two, let's do something. Let's do something a little bit more interesting on these ones. Maybe we'll see. I like the triangle idea. Don't know why. Just think it looks cool. I'll do a couple of these. So we'll have him. Maybe we'll could do both sides on this one. both? Yeah, go on, let's have this one mirrored. And we'll do the other one as asymmetrical. Nothing is perfectly uniform when it comes to anything that may or may not be Alpha Legion. No, these aren't subtle hints at all. It just so happens to be the same colour as the Alpha Legion. There you go, he's quite cool. Right, this one, we have some asymmetry on as well. Let's do the right side of the tank and something on the top. Now, what should we do on the side? Let's do a vertical line, we haven't done one of them. A wee bit thin, let's broaden it out a little bit. There we go, we've got a stripe along the side. Let's do something on top, make it look a bit more interesting. I haven't touched this sort of section of the vehicle. What if this one is just painted in that section there for whatever reason? You know, it need to be perfect here because this is sort of like a. This is what's been done to the vehicle after it's left the factory rather than how it came out of the factory. Even if it's not perfect, it's not so bad. There we go. That's a little bit interesting, isn't it? It just breaks it up a little bit. Got a random stripe on that side. So you can almost imagine, you know, they purposely roll up this way and start firing, and then partway through the battle they just turn around. Uh-oh. Own little bit of entertainment there. Right, that's the basilisks ready for basing. Well, varnishing and basing. They're done. Fantastic. And we got just under an hour to go. So I'm going to pop these all to one side out of the way. Including me reference Russ. Ow, that was me elbow on the table. I may very well quickly whip out the airbrush at some point tonight and just get a coat of varnish on them so I can put the bases on them. Right, this guy has, looks like the wash is just about done. Which is good. Let's do it a little bit. Some of the recesses, but I don't think that's going to stop me doing what I want to do. So that should be fine. So let's bring these all in. Try and grip them by the base. Give yourself some finger room. Right, let's just double check that one again. Yeah, looks like it's all dried around the eyes. So what we'll do, because I know I've still got some Stormhost there, let's grab some Stormhost and just pick out those eyes. And we'll start from the front. I don't and pick out the eyes on my Space Marines or my Auxilia. But lenses on vehicles I do, as you've seen, and obviously Titans and Knights are a little bit more forgiving because of their size, so they get the treatment. Realised we've been sat in an awkward silence for a second, haven't we? Yes, got a little bit carried away on the old concentrating on the eyeballs. Well, eye lenses rather than eyeballs. I was actually thinking in my mind just then. I was thinking about pulling out all the other Armigers and fixing them up tonight. I do want to get on and get that Blender project sorted, so I need to really, because my printer is almost running. I've got a few more print stuff to do for the rest of the terrain we need, and I need these other bits done because they're part of it. Obviously objective markers and whatnot, quite important. Okay, that's that done. Very sure it's just the eyes and the cables to do on these guys, and they're done. I need a bit more Core XY. Oh no, it's not. It's the extra washers as well, isn't it? Yeah, got to do 2 extra washers, but they won't take long at all. So we'll get the white base coat down. Because that needs a little bit of time to cure off, so that we can then move on to doing the colour, which again is a blue contrast, so that goes down. That does actually go down pretty quick and dries pretty quick as well. Contrasts are good for drying times. So I'm just going to pop a bit of white on these cables. That brush is saturated with water, making it very hard to apply the white there. There we go, that's a bit better. Got it in my head that there was more cables on these guys, but I think that's because the chain cleavers, I think, or possibly the melters, one of the two had pipes on them, but these don't. Now, I think, if I remember right, they did originally, but they would not print very well, so I ended up just cutting them off. And to be honest, I don't think you would notice if I hadn't told you. Do have their chin cables. So these won't take a very long look, and they've literally only got the cables on the back of their legs and the chin cable. Well, I mean, these projects have gone on a little bit longer than one would normally anticipate, I would think. But I mean, that's in terms of actual time. In terms of relative time spent on the models, I'd say they went pretty damn quick. But obviously in real world time, obviously they did take a few weeks to get finished, but they will be done today. Or done enough today that they will be completed this week. And they will be completed this week. I know I've said that a few times, but as I said, my priorities have been a bit different. But finishing these off at this point will be that won't take away much time from my other projects, so I don't mind spending the time on it. And I always had it in the back of my head that these would be good options for hobby halls to finish off, really. So. And you'll obviously get to see the full process as well, because you've seen me start nights several times, you never actually seen me finish them. I think this is the furthest we've ever got with a night on a stream. And you've actually seen pretty much the full process of how to do the tanks now as well. My paint scheme for my tanks, obviously. But you've actually seen the whole process now. And the only thing you won't have seen, obviously, is the Titans, but like I said, I don't think that's going to be very viable for a stream. Just because it'll be airbrushing a lot. I mean, there's quite a bit of brushwork in fairness, but I do a lot of it with an airbrush first. I don't know, I probably could do it. If I'm thinking about it, there's still quite a lot of brushwork that goes into them. So maybe we'll do a Titan. Maybe we'll do a Titan. If I can get it set up. Although if I don't know actually. Yeah, no. To be honest, I think my next one will be some flyers. I think, which we built some of my flyers on the stream. It'd be nice to get those painted up. Because I really do want to try and avoid using unpainted models now, because it'll be my motivation to actually paint them. Not that I need much motivation these days, it's I just have to reprioritise, but it might incentivise me to what to paint next, if that makes sense. So hopefully I'll be able to sort of identify that, oh, I want to run that unit, so I'm going to paint that next. And it'll also mean that once I've painted it, I'll work my list around the unit that I've just painted. So yeah, I think my next protocol will be me flyers, because I kind of want those on the table. He says that he's now thinking, actually, to be fair, if I built the Bane Blades, I could run an armoured company. Or if I painted the Bane Blades, I could run an armoured company. And I know Els wants to run the Astartes one, so that would kind of be on theme. I mean, obviously. I mean, Elsa's army won't be painted. Well, some of it will be, because some of it is my Alpha Legion. She's borrowing my Alpha Legion while she slowly builds up her Night Lords. She's almost got her first unit done, though. She's almost got her first set of infantry done. And she wants to go through all of her infantry first before her tanks, which I think is fair enough. I might suggest that she takes a break at some point and does something different to be a bit interesting, but she's also learning to paint at the same time, and it's interesting. I think the infantry are an interesting paradox, really, because you'd think something so tiny is probably not the best thing to learn painting on. But I'd argue that actually learning to paint on the small ones is quite good, because it almost doesn't matter if they're not great, because they're going to be in big blocks. When I say big blocks, I mean they're going to be a dozen models to a base, and you're not really taking too much of a look at the models from a distance on the table most of the time. She's got a bit to go in terms of painting, but they're not bad. I mean, I've been trying to teach her some of the tricks and the whatnot. They're not bad. They're certainly not up to a high level yet, but you know, she's only just starting, and I think for a first timer, I'd say they're pretty good. And again, doing it on the infantry is nice and forgiving, because even if they're not perfect, you're not really going to see it anyway. They only kind of need to get the idea across. It is nice if they are nicely painted to a good high quality, but can't always be the case. Because when you've got to start somewhere, it does mean that wherever you start generally won't be your best until years down the line when you decide to repaint them. That's if you ever decide to go back and repaint them, I suppose. There's definitely a school of thought that you shouldn't repaint models. Certainly your first ones. Later ones, like mid-range ones, not so much, but the first ones. There's the school of thought that having those around as a reminder of where you started is a good idea, and to be honest, I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. And that's not the reason why I do, but I do still have some of my earliest painted models. Just through sheer chance I didn't ever get around to selling them, because I sold off a lot of models of my old army, but they were all the unpainted ones. I'm not really surprised, because my painting wasn't very good back then. I was even lazier than I am now. Mind you, I was a child. I'm a very impatient one at that. Can't say much changed. Oh, we're getting so close now. Race is on. Time is ticking away. I mean, we are going to have to speed up a little bit. I'm not actually going to speed up. I don't want to ruin my models. But I think there's still a chance. There's still a chance we can make it. If not, we're going to get very close. We're going to get very close. Okay, that's those all done. Right, I've got all that green sat there that needs to be used up, so let's use that up. Let's wash that out in the metal pot. That was the wrong idea. Let's quickly put those green lenses in. before that all gets separated and full of water and becomes unusable. Not far off it now. At least we'll get as much use out of that green as we can. Same problem with wet palettes. They do keep your paints moist, but I do tend to find you shouldn't put too much on there because it has the opposite effect of over thinning them as well. So you kind of want to still work in small batches, but those small batches don't just dry up and become useless, which does happen. So the wet palettes are good. But it's not quite the revolutionary invention that I thought it was going to be. I have to say. Of course, I could be using them wrong. Maybe there's something I'm missing. But as far as I can tell, I'm using them as intended. Follow the instructions. Probably notice I have a bit of a thing for red. I like red. Red is one of my favourite colours. A lot of my armies feature red. I don't know. Just I can never get away from red. I just like red. My Disciples of Hashut, my Chaos Votan, they're red armour. My Space Marine Successor chapter, Nemean Guard, they're red armoured. House Drakaran, red armour. Even my knights, even my Titans, they're half white. No, half white, half red. My other favourite colour, or if you classify it as a colour, I know some people don't, is white. But I think white is one of those colours where it is one of my favourite colours, but only in certain circumstances. I'm not a massive fan of it in a lot of circumstances. It works in some, not in others. When it comes to painting, I just don't want to deal with it. Oh yeah, even my Necrons have red in them. Even my Vampire Thousand Suns had a lot of red on the characters and whatnot, like on their capes and stuff like that. Yeah, could never get away from it. Oh well, I say never get away from it. I never try to get away from it. It's my go-to. Right. So that's that done. So let's get the little bits of washing done. So we're going to grab this brush. We need 2 washes here. We are going to be using Rattling Grime and Basilicanum Grey. Rattling Grime is going to go on to the muzzles of all of those little melter guns that are on top of the armigers. Funnily enough, the little melter guns don't have rules, so they're just there for show. And because they have them on the models but don't have rules for them, I forget that the Questoris are the same. The Questoris have stubbers and little melter guns on their shoulders, but they actually have rules, and I always forget that they have rules. Which means quite often I'll get to par way through a game, or even to the end of the game, thinking, oh, hang on, all my Questoris Knights had loads more shots that it could have used. rattling grams going over this just to change the tone of the bronze to a more dirty and horrible look, which I think suits the melter aesthetic. So it means that all the Dracaran armour trim stands out as like a nice bright bronzy brass colour with the nice subtle Nuln Oil shade. And then all of the other bits of bronze that I've done, which is on sort of like the pipes, the chassis, all the bits on the chassis and whatnot, they're all going to be done with a Basilicanum Grey, which just knocks it into a much darker, oily look to it. So rather than like this sort of muddy brown look that I'm putting on the melter guns, which, you know, I kind of think of as, you know, more like a scorched metal, the Basilicanum Grey turns the other bits of bronze into a much sort of oily, dirty, messy sort of brass, I would say. Whereas the Nuln Oil kind of pushes it more bronzy. Or at least that's what my thinking is. And it does work. Hopefully, if these won't probably dry in time to show you, but on this camera, but there are examples on social media anyway of my knights, and you should be able to see that although that I've used the same base coat for all of the bronze metallics, I've washed them in 3 different ways, which has changed the profile of them. Change the colour profiles and make them look different. And I think this method is much easier than trying to pick them out in different colours, because you're not switching your base paint, and you can be a lot rougher with a wash. So it overspills a bit and just adds to the effect almost. Okay, that's that bit done. I'll whip round with Basilicanum now. This one's a little bit more in depth. 30 minutes to go. 1 wash, 1 base, 1 contrast to do. Sorry, 2 contrasts to do. But 1 is used as a wash. And these armigers will be done, which will be good actually, because I've been wanting to run these armigers in my games. I'm purposely not running them recently because they've been half painted and I don't want to peel the paint off by handling them. Right, here we go. So all these pipes are going to get covered. Make them into a dirtier industrial colour rather than the nice bright bronze of the accent colour. You can really see it on the pistons where the pistons are right up against the armour panels. You can see that the tone completely shifts, so that they don't look anything alike anymore. One bronze, or 1 set of rune or brass, as the paint is, goes from looking like a sort of a nice accent colour, and then the other one but suddenly shifts into this sort of grungy, functional metallic colour. And the all over Nuln Oil is just just an extra layer, really. It's mostly because I can't be bothered to not. I can't be doing with pin washers and stuff like that. Whack it all over, job done. Since discovering the Basilicanum Grey and Rattling Chrome as a wash rather than as a straight contrast, it's been a game changer. Gives you so much more variety and options. And I use both those colours quite extensively across these armies. Pistons. No idea what these little nodules at the back of the Armiger's feet are for. They look a little bit superfluous. I'm not really sure what they're supposed to represent. Which I know sounds a bit strange because I'm looking at a science fiction model, but normally you can kind of look at something and kind of get a rough idea of what its purpose might be. I'm not sure what these little nodules are supposed to be for. Like these canisters on the back are probably holding some kind of survival chemical, like an oxygen store or maybe a fuel tank. This is meant to be some kind of power plant kind of thing. Yeah, it's kind of obvious what they're supposed to be. But sometimes you just look at a piece and think, actually, I have no idea why that's there. And I think the answer is no one knows. It's kind of just there because it adds to the silhouette. But sometimes you look at these bits and you do think, is that entirely necessary to include on the model? Does it really add that much? And then the irony is you'll take that piece away, you'll cut it off, and you'll realise, oh yeah, that did just add that little something. I have done that before. I have cut off bits that I thought were superfluous and suddenly thought, oh actually, although I didn't like the idea of it, it was kind of crucial to the overall look. And sometimes it is something as simple as those small bits. Then that goes back to my whole point about, well, it only takes a small thing to change the whole look. Look what happened with the tiny amount of extra paint I put on the Basilisks to completely change them. From something that looked very basic to something that actually looked like it had a lot of effort put into it. When realistically it's only had a few hours put into it. No complicated techniques really. The most advanced thing on those tanks is using an airbrush. And that's not exactly advanced these days. You can pick up airbrushes pretty cheap now. Mine's not the cheapest in the world, but it's certainly not the most expensive. And to be honest, I think the only thing that actually makes my airbrush so good is the ultrasonic cleaner. Just keeps it going, keeps it clog free, which to be honest is almost the biggest problem I've ever had, is clogging. I just don't get that anymore. So without that, airbrush has become an absolute breeze.
time. It's going to get close. It's going to be very close. But I think we can do it. We are so nearly there. Genuinely, I'm not actually rushing, but it is kind of entertaining to almost imagine the clock running down. I shall probably end up doing many more of these armigers over the next year. Fill out all my formations. There'll be a lot of formations. And they need a lot of armigers. Coming up to halfway. The Basilicanum run. And this is the definitely the harder one to do because it's in a lot of places. Because at least when we do the cables, they're a little bit more focused in a couple of places. Not so many surface areas to deal with. You know, I've got halfway through these and I'm starting to wonder now whether I got my contrast the wrong way around, whether I was supposed to do the rattling on the other way around. But I gave the explanation as to why I've done it that way, so I can't imagine I did do it wrong, because that makes sense to me. And that's the way I've immediately gone to, so... I mean, the difference between rattling and Basilicanum is quite subtle on
on the brass anyway, so I can't imagine it would make a huge difference if it was the other way around on the others. I think we'll live. I'm determined now, I want these done. Question is, will we be doing Bane Blades next time, or are we going to be doing Flyers? That is going to be the real question. Quite fancy doing the Bane Blades, to be honest, because I'm going to do a different colour scheme for my air assets, because they are theoretically part of the Aeronautica Imperialis rather than the Aethon Auxilia. They're not part of that part of the army, so they are theoretically their own sort of subset of the military. So I am thinking of doing them a different scheme again, which will give me another set of colours to play with. I am thinking of going the other way again now. So I've got the auxiliary are sort of dark, industrial, metallic. Then you've got the sort of semi-dark but more flamboyant knights. And then you've got the really over-the-top, boisterous titans. So I'm thinking with the flyers, I might go for a very classic Aeronautica, all business, grey, but a matte grey rather than a metallic grey. It just gives me more excuses to make some more 28mm characters as well, because I can then have like Aeronautica admirals or air marshals, whatever you want to call them. Because we are going to be making some 28mm characters for these armies, so that we've got some close-ups for narrative storytelling in battle reports. And we've got to do some. I've got to do quite a few, because I've got Space Marines. I've got to do Titan Princeps or two. I've got to do some Knight Scions, some Auxilia Command, and potentially some Aeronautica Fleet Commanders as well. But to me, that's just fun. We'll probably paint those up on stream, actually. Those will be quite fun. Don't know whether we'll build and convert them on stream, because I'll probably end up going through all my bits boxes and stuff and finding all some fun obscure bits. So I think I will do those all in plastics. Could print them, I suppose. But I've already found the perfect kit to make a Scion out of, which is the Exaction Squad. The Imperial Legions Exaction Squad. Their armour's quite almost medieval segmented armour, which fits the sort of knights in the future vibe. So we'll probably be going with that. So I'll make some Scions from those. Not quite sure how I'm going to do a Titan Princeps yet. I haven't figured that one out. Auxilia, easy. There's plenty of Auxilia kits around. I would pick up a kit or see if I can pick up an odd model off eBay or something. Get some 3D printed conversion bits or something just to make him stand out a little bit. Alpha Legion's not a problem, I've already got Alpha Legion characters made up. One thing on my agenda as well is to make a couple of custom knight suits as well. So that I can make some cool characters. Some character knights with a bit more flair. Maybe do some, either do some printing or some sculpting just to make them look a little bit more ostentatious, and so that they're the mounts of their nobility, the real nobility. I want to do a couple of barons. I'm thinking of doing a king and or a queen. So that I can represent my actual leadership on the table. Many of our team are running mostly Space Marine armies, so they're going to have Primarchs to play with. There's some custom rules that we'll write, so I might make myself some custom rules for some big special knights. I say big special knights, I mean they'll be based off the Cerastus patterns, because it's pretty much my favourite pattern. I do like the Questoris pattern. I'm very disappointed that the Dominus doesn't exist in Legions. I sincerely hope that that's something that will eventually come to Legions. I like some Dominus pattern knights. Especially there's not really much in terms of knights to release now, apart from a few of the Forge World resin conversions. Not many of them. I mean, if GW does actually release these in plastic, I will buy the plastic ones. I've said that before on I've said that before on stream. I will. Which is why I probably will avoid printing any more of these for now. However, if I get to a point where I decide I now need more Armigers and they haven't released the plastics yet, then well, you know what happens there. Then they get printed. But I will give GW a reasonable amount of time to actually release some plastic ones. Although hopefully they are much better priced. To be fair, the night kits are normally very, very reasonably priced relative to Games Workshop. Right, got less than 10 minutes. Still got some blue to do. Let's do it. Let's go for it, let's do it. We might run over a little bit, but do you know what? It'll be worth it. Let's get these finished. Ah, hi there. Yes, I am painting Legions Imperialis. You are right. I've been sat here twitting away to myself. Hopefully that message hasn't been up there that long.
So we are literally finishing up some armigers at the moment. When I say finishing up, I mean finishing. We are almost done. I don't collect an Adeptus Mechanicus myself. One of our team, John, is definitely looking at a Mechanicus army, specifically Dark Mechanicus to go with the Word Bearers theme. I can't say I've got any plans to do Mechanicus. I currently do 4 out of the 5 armies available. I'm not quite sure I want to go to a 5th. And I don't really think the AdMech really are going to give me anything I can't get from the other 4 armies I already collect. Trying to gauge, is that a question because you're wondering what they're like, or is that something that you're particularly interested in? Right, yeah. Yeah, no, the theme behind the Titan colours was harkening back to my favourite days of when I was younger, playing Medieval and Medieval 2 Total War, and playing as England. You always had your nice sort of golden yellow and halved with red coats on a lot of your troops. It just reminds me of those days, so I thought that was a good excuse to do something a bit fancy on the Titans, really. So I've never been brave enough really to do a half scheme before, but I thought a Titan's probably an appropriate time to do one if you're only ever going to do it once. And I can guarantee you I'm never doing anything smaller. So, are you a Legions player at all, or more casually interested in it, or more 40k, that kind of thing? You just love the scale and the models. I take it that means that you don't actually necessarily play the game, and potentially don't. Do you collect them at all? The scale is wonderful. It does
I mean, on a tabletop, it does look phenomenal. I've got a couple of pictures from a game I played with my partner Els the other day, which will be going up on Instagram and TikTok hopefully later today. And that's on my board with my newly painted buildings on, and there's not many pictures because I'm afraid the game did not last very long. She made a few very key mistakes very early on and lost pretty much her entire army by turn 2, which is very rare in Legions, but it does happen. So there's not many pictures, but you do get the cool epic scale. I mean, I've got my War Master marching through the city streets in some of the pictures, and it just looks epic. But then I suppose that's the whole point of epic scale gaming. Ah, okay. That's interesting. I've heard of Xenos Rampant. Not and I mean I heard of it exists. I don't know anything about it. But it's interesting you mentioned about the 3D modelling, because I've been using Blender now for about I don't know, about 4 or 5 years, and only just this weekend I decided to actually, instead of just digi-bashing stuff, actually sit down and design something from scratch. And I'm currently building and making a set of Legions objective markers, which are basically little bases with a little stand on it which you can put a banner in. So you can just say, oh, you know, I own that point. Which, much like yourself, my intention is to design it, print them and sell them. Because, again, there's certainly a gap in the Legions market, because we don't really have those kind of things. Okay. I take it you must have a relatively decent FDM printer if you're printing for a game system. Models, I'm assuming. Because I've only really I started with FDM, but I moved over to resin very quickly because I find it a lot more efficient for what I want it for. But FDM is great concept. I mean, I do quite enjoy messing around with the machines. My mate bought my old one off me, and I'm currently messing around with it and fixing it up again, because it's as with all FDM machines from then anyway, they're always falling apart. So you're constantly fixing them and replacing parts. A new part should have just turned up today, so I've got to go over and fit it tonight and get a print moving, because it's part of his business. For context, it is it's a Ender 5 Plus. Which I know when I bought it at the time, Ender was definitely one of the big ones. Okay, yeah. Okay. I could never get very good print, not for miniatures, out of a filament printer. Maybe that was just my inexperience at the time, because obviously I moved to the resin pretty quick. But I certainly printed a lot of terrain and stuff on the FDMs. And it is quite nice having a nice cheap way to do a hobby, I have to say. This is the same person that has willingly admitted on camera on YouTube that I built and painted 10,000 points of GW plastic last year. Well, actually, in like 3 months of the end of last year. Which is insane. Yeah. I don't know Titanforge, but I do know One Page Rules. They've got some really nice stuff. My only problem with One Page Rules is some of their stuff looks great, and some of it looks really naff to me. But that's not necessarily true for everyone. Some of them are great, some of them aren't. I'm not a fan of some of them. Like their hive system, hive bugs or whatever it is. I can't remember what they call them. Those look awesome. I would be very tempted to print those off. So we're primarily a YouTube channel, and mostly what we do at the moment is podcasts, which you can find on YouTube just at Mead Wargaming. We do have a Facebook page that doesn't tend to get used very much. I'll be honest. We've got Instagrams and TikTok though, which we post up a lot of bits and pieces of hobby and stuff that we're doing. These live streams happen every Sunday. 2 to 5. There's an exception every now and then, like last weekend it got cancelled very last minute because I suddenly remembered it was my birthday and had to be social. But yes, so our channel very much on YouTube is very much focused at the moment on podcasts. We just talk about wargaming and hobbies and stuff like that. Our earlier stuff was more sort of game showing, but we've moved more into discussion topics now. And in the future we'll be doing other stuff as well on the YouTube channel. We're looking at doing battle reports with miniatures, which is why my focus mostly is on terrain at the moment. My armies haven't been getting too much attention. And we're also going to be I'm going to be doing a series of videos on how to play Legions, teach people how to play the game. And there is also going to be another one which is going to be sort of a more crafting set of videos, which is about basically converting a big, for Legions, a big Titan model, but using a 40k Knight kit, so it's going to be pretty huge. Relative, anyway, huge. So yeah, we don't actually have a specific website yet. That is something I'm looking into, because I will be looking at doing some, making some models. So potentially we'll need a website to sell those on, but we'll start probably on eBay or something for now. See what the interest is there, and then we'll move from there really. Right, well, these guys are all done, so I'm just going to try and show them on camera a little bit. That's probably one of the better poses, so teeny tiny little guy, all done. Try and show the back as well. Right. Again, my lazy painting does a good job, I think. It's lazy but precise. Don't paint every little detail. So they're done. They're ready for varnishing and basing, which won't be done on camera, as I've said. And just to reiterate, I'll just grab one of the basilisks as well that we finished earlier. My little artillery tanks. If the camera's going to behave. It really doesn't like focusing very well. Oh, it did focus there though. Yeah, there we go. Just lift it up as well. There we go, we did. So we've got 8 of those and 9 armigers. There we go, nice little army done. Right, I'm gonna switch to the other camera now, because that is
Mead done on the desk now. So, yeah, so, well, thank you, Nova Games, for dropping in there and saying hi. Sadly, this is also the end of the stream as well, because I normally run 2 to 5. But thank you very much for popping in and saying hi. Please do pop in again if you're available on a Sunday afternoon. I'll be here. And if you're interested, go check out the YouTube channel. You might find it interesting, you might not. Like I said, it's podcasts and discussions and stuff. So if that's your thing, great. It's a bit of a laugh to put on while you're hobbying, maybe. Certainly the newer stuff is better quality. We only started the channel last year, so we're still building it up a little bit. But yeah, that is it. That is it for today. Thank you very, very much. Hope you enjoyed me rambling for what was it? 3 hours? 3 hours of rambling. And yeah, we got some finished models. These models will be going up onto the socials when I finish them. I will endeavour to get them finished this week and put them up. As I say, they are pretty much done now, so they'll be there, and some nice close-ups. I'll put them in the light box as well, so we get some decent images. Keep an eye out for updates and changes to the channel. We hopefully will have a D&D campaign starting soon. That'll be a live stream, although we've had a little bit of a snag when it comes to how we're actually going to record that. So I've got to figure that out, but hopefully that'll be sorted by the end of the month. It's all been planned. We've got the characters ready, so that should be fun. Yeah, so that is it, I think. Yeah, there's nothing else to say really, so thank you very much. I'll see you soon next time in the Mead Hall. Bye bye for now.